Hi everyone. Today we're going to solve quadratic equations by quadratic formula. First, let us define quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are of this standard form: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. But a should not be equal to 0. It means in a quadratic equation, there is a term with a variable raised to second power. Example, 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 equals 0. In here, our example is in standard form. All the terms are on the left side and it is equal to 0. Then we can collect the a, b, and c. Take note that the a is the coefficient of x squared, so a equals 2. The b is the coefficient of the x, so in here the b equals 9. And the c is the constant, so c is equal to -5. Do not forget the sign of the constant. Let us see now the quadratic formula. The solutions to a quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equal to 0, are given by the formula, and this is the quadratic formula. X equals, in the numerator, is -b plus or minus the square root of the quantity b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Here are the steps on how to solve quadratic equation using quadratic formula. Step 1. Write the quadratic equation in standard form. Identify the a, b, and c values. Step 2. Write the quadratic formula. Then substitute the values of a, b, and c. Step 3. Simplify. Let us have some examples. This is example 1. Solve 2x squared plus 9x minus 5 equals 0 by quadratic formula. In solving, it means we want to get the values of the x. Step 1. Write the quadratic equation in standard form. The equation is already in standard form because all the terms are on the left and it is equal to 0. Identify now the a, b, and c values. So we will collect the a, that is the coefficient of x squared, it is 2. We collect now the b, the coefficient of x, and that is 9. And the c is the constant, -5. Step 2. Write the quadratic formula. Then substitute the values of a, b, and c. Here now is our quadratic formula. And then we substitute the values of a, b, and c. It is now the negative of b, and that is 9, plus or minus the square root of, this is now 9 squared, minus 4. The a is now changed into 2. The c is now -5 all over 2 times a, and the a is now changed into 2. And step 3, we will simplify and get the values for x. So the negative of the positive 9 is now negative 9, plus or minus. 9 squared is 81. The product of negative 4, 2, and negative 5 is positive 40, all over. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we simplify the radicand. The 81 plus 40 is 121. We just copy the negative 9, the plus or minus sign, and the denominator 4. On the next step, we need to simplify this square root of 121, and that is 11. Now at this point, we're going to split the plus and minus. There will be two values for the x. The x sub 1 is equal to, we will use first the plus sign. So negative 9 plus 11 all over 4. For the x sub 2, the negative sign will be used. So negative 9 minus 11 all over 4. Then let us simplify both. Negative 9 plus 11 equals positive 2 over 4. The negative 9 minus 11 equals negative 20 over 4. We can reduce to lowest term the 2 over 4. It is equal to 1/2. The negative 20 over 4 is equal to negative 5. So the two values of x are 1/2 and negative 5. Let's have example 2. Solve x squared minus 6x equals negative 5 by quadratic formula. Step 1. Let us write the equation in standard form. We can see here that the constant negative 5 is on the right. The standard form says the right side must be equal to 0. So we will transpose the negative 5 to the other side of the equation, and the sign must be changed. So the negative 5 becomes positive 5 on the left side, and it is equal now to 0. Then we will identify the a, b, and c. For our a, the coefficient of x squared is 1. The b, the coefficient of x is negative 6. And the c is the constant. Step 2, we go now to our quadratic formula. Then we will substitute the values of a, b, and c. So it's now negative of negative 6 plus or minus the square root of the square of negative 6 minus the constant 4 times a, which is now changed into 1, times c, which is now changed into 5, all over 2 times a, and a is 1. Step 3, let us simplify. The negative of negative 6 is positive 6, plus or minus the square root of the square of negative 6 is positive 36, minus the product of negative 4 times 1 times 5 is negative 20, all over 2. And then we will simplify the 36 minus 20. It is now 16. So our radical now is square root of 16. And then we can simplify the square root of 16 into 4. And from this point, we're going now to split the plus and minus sign to get the two values of x. X sub 1 equals 6 plus 4 all over 2, and x sub 2 equals 6 minus 4 all over 2. For the x sub 1, the 6 plus 4 is 10 over 2, which is equal to 5. For our x sub 2, the 6 minus 4 is 2 over 2, and that is equal to 1. And this is our final answer. Now let us consider example 3. Solve x squared equals 8x minus 16 by quadratic formula. Step 1. Let us write the quadratic equation in standard form. It means the 8x minus 16 we will transpose on the left side. If we do that, we should change the sign. Look at the 8x. It becomes negative 8x here, and the negative 16 on the right becomes positive 16, and it is now equal to 0. Then let us identify the a, b, and c values. A is the coefficient of x squared. It is equal to 1. B is the coefficient of x, and that is negative 8. And the c, the constant, positive 16. Then we will write the quadratic formula and substitute the values of a, b, and c. So this is now the negative of negative 8 plus or minus the big square root. The square of negative 8 is here, then minus 4 times a, which is now changed into 1, times c, which is now changed into 16, all over 2 times a, and is now changed into 1. Then step 3, we will simplify the formula. The negative of negative 8 is positive 8, plus or minus the square root of the square of negative 8 is positive 64. Then minus the product of 4 times 1 times 16 equals 64. All over the 2 times 1 is 2. You see here we have 64 minus 64, and that is equal to 0. So our radical now is square root of 0, and when we simplify the square root of 0, it's simply 0. At this point, we will now split our x into plus or minus. The x sub 1 is 8 plus 0 all over 2. 8 plus 0 is 8 over 2 is equal to 4. X sub 2 is the 8 minus 0 all over 2. Also it is 8 over 2, and that is equal to 4. You see here our values are the same. It's like the solution of the quadratic equation is simply a single number, and that is 4. This is our final answer. Take note, in a quadratic equation, since the highest power is 2, the number of possible solutions is at most 2. Let us go to example 4. Solve x times the binomial x minus 6 equals negative 10 by quadratic formula. Step 1. Write the quadratic equation in standard form and identify the a, b, and c values. So what we'll do is to multiply this x with x. We have x squared. Then x times negative 6 is negative 6x. For the negative 10 on the right side, we will transpose this to the left, and the sign will change. From negative 10, it will be positive 10. And this is now equal to 0. The given equation here is now changed in standard form. Then we can now collect the values for a, b, and c respectively. We know that a is the coefficient of x squared, so a equals 1. B is the coefficient of x, so b is negative 6. And c is the constant 10. Step 2. Write the quadratic formula, then substitute the values of a, b, and c. The formula is here now, and we will substitute the values a, b, and c respectively. The negative b becomes negative of negative 6, plus and minus the square root of the b square is now the square of negative 6 minus 4 times a, where a is 1, and times c, where c is 10, all over 2 times a, and this is 2 times 1. Then step 3, we will simplify the equation. So the negative of negative 6 becomes positive 6. Plus and minus the square root of the square of negative 6 is positive 36. Then minus the product of 4 and 1 and 10 is 40. So we have here 36 minus 40 inside the radical sign. All over 2 times 1 is 2. To simplify further, the 36 minus 40 is negative 4. So we have a negative value inside the radical sign. Let us factor out this negative 4 so that the negative sign will get out from the 4. So we have to show that this is negative 1 times positive 4. Then let us distribute the radical sign to each factor here for negative 1 and positive 4. So here it is. So we have the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. We know that the square root of 4 is 2. But this square root of negative 1, we don't have a real number answer here. So we can regard this square root of negative 1 to be imaginary. And this first letter of imaginary I, we will use this to substitute for the square root of negative 1. Let us simplify further. So we have now x equals 6 plus and minus. The square root of negative 1 is now changed to I, and then the square root of 4 is simplified into positive 2. So we have here I times 2, then all over 2. This I times 2 can be written as 2I. And then in the numerator, there is a common factor which is 2. We can factor out that 2, so we have 2 times the quantity, the 6 becomes 3, then plus and minus, the 2i is now left with I, all over the denominator 2. So the numerator 2 and the denominator 2 will cancel each other. So we are left with the value x equals 3 plus and minus I. And from here, we can show that there are two values for x. One is x sub 1, where we will use the positive. So this is 3 plus I. And x sub 2 equals 3 minus I. This is our final answer. I hope you learned something from this video. See you again next time.